The extraterrestrials lingered in the cosmos, observing Earth with a blend of curiosity and contempt. From their viewpoint, it was amusing that such a primitive species had managed to endure for this long. Their council had long debated Earth's fate, but now they unanimously agreed the time for conquest had arrived. Humans, in their estimation, were mere primitive creatures, barely scratching the surface of technological progress. Their own species had flourished for millennia, mastering warfare through technology so advanced it bordered on the incomprehensible for lesser beings. Civilizations had crumbled before them without a sound, and Earth, with its basic weaponry and fractured societies, would be no different. The alien commander, a tall figure with piercing, calculating eyes, sat confidently at the helm of the lead ship. There was no need for intricate strategies or drawn-out battles. This would be simple. Humans, notorious for their inability to unite, would be too busy fighting among themselves to face a common enemy. They wouldn't even see it coming. Reports from reconnaissance drones confirmed their beliefs. These humans were laughably divided, quarreling over borders, ideologies, and resources. Their weapons, dependent on crude chemicals and physical projectiles, were light years behind the energy-based arms wielded by the aliens. So the commander grinned, assured that victory would be swift and decisive. Earth would fall, and yet another trophy would be added to their collection. So as the fleet approached, the first landing site was chosen: a vast, empty desert. The aliens assumed they could seize this land without resistance, neutralizing any human opposition before advancing to more densely populated areas. The ship's ramp descended, and the initial wave of soldiers emerged, their armor glistening in the harsh sunlight, weapons primed. No resistance appeared, as the commander had anticipated. Primitive creatures wouldn't even realize they were being invaded until it was too late. But something was amiss. Their equipment sensors began to malfunction, readings fluctuating as if the environment itself was disrupting their advanced technology. What should have been a straightforward invasion was suddenly not so simple. The alien commander dismissed the malfunctions as minor issues, confident that their superior technology would ultimately overwhelm the humans. Still, an uneasiness began to spread among the troops. This land wasn't like the other worlds they had conquered. It had a raw, untamed quality that seemed to resist their control. Just as they prepared to advance, something unexpected occurred. From the horizon, they heard the unmistakable sound of hooves. At first, the aliens thought it was merely a natural phenomenon. Then they saw them figures on horseback, steadily approaching with purpose. Zooming in through their viewfinders, the aliens expected to see wild animals. Instead, they found humans riding beasts and wielding outdated weapons, clad in rugged, weather-beaten clothes. And the commander, unfazed, ordered a warning shot. A streak of energy flashed across the sky, distorting the air with its heat, and landed just ahead of the riders. The humans slowed but did not stop. The commander sneered, believing these creatures were too foolish to understand they were outmatched. Yet the riders continued. The lead figure, an older man wearing a wide-brimmed hat, aimed an old-fashioned projectile weapon and fired. To the commander's astonishment, the bullet struck one of his soldiers squarely, shattering the energy shield instantly. The soldier fell, and for a moment, the aliens were paralyzed with shock. These primitive weapons weren't supposed to penetrate their defenses. How had this happened? The humans charged, their horses kicking up dust as more gunfire erupted. The aliens, for the first time in their history of conquest, found themselves on the defensive. Their shields flickered, faltering under the relentless barrage of bullets. The commander ordered a full-scale retaliation, but the aliens' energy blast missed their marks. The humans were too quick, too nimble on their horseback mounts. Their movements were erratic, their attacks relentless. What the aliens had underestimated was human ingenuity. These weren't just any humans, they were descendants of survivors, hardened by the toughest environments Earth had to offer. They had fought nature itself and won. To them, the aliens were just another obstacle to overcome, another threat to neutralize. They had faced danger before and would face it again with the same grit and determination that had allowed them to endure for so long. As the aliens recalibrated their weapons, the riders scattered, using the desert's natural crevices for cover. Frustration mounted for the alien commander. His flawless technology was failing in the face of these so-called primitive humans. How was it possible? The answer lay in what the aliens had failed to recognize: human adaptability. These cowboys had grown up in a harsh world where nothing came easy. They knew how to fight with what they had, how to make the most of limited resources, and how to improvise on the fly. And they weren't about to back down just because some alien race thought it could take over their land. The battle continued, and the aliens' confidence began to waver. Their advanced technology, while powerful, wasn't designed for this kind of warfare. It couldn't handle opponents who fought unpredictably, with raw, unrefined ferocity. Every time the aliens thought they had the upper hand, the cowboys would surprise them with another clever tactic, another unexpected maneuver. What had seemed like a guaranteed victory for the aliens was quickly turning into a nightmare. The commander watched in disbelief as his soldiers fell, one by one, unable to withstand the relentless attacks of these so-called savages. The riders returned to their camp after the first encounter, their expressions a mix of astonishment and satisfaction. They hadn't expected to face aliens, but they certainly hadn't expected their old-fashioned tactics to be so effective against such an advanced enemy. The desert sun set, casting long shadows across the landscape as they gathered to discuss their next move. They knew one thing for sure: this fight was far from over. Each cowboy brought his own experience to the table. These weren't just ranchers, they were problem solvers, men who had faced droughts, wild animals, and outlaws. Aliens, they figured, couldn't be much different. Their leader, a weathered cowboy with a lifetime of experience etched into his face, stood tall, already thinking several steps ahead. They needed to learn more about their enemy and discover how to exploit any weaknesses. Under the cover of darkness, a small group of cowboys set out on a reconnaissance mission, armed only with their wits, rifles, and a few sticks of dynamite. They approached the alien landing site, their suspicions confirmed. These invaders were organized, their technology far beyond anything humanity had ever seen. Massive ships stood silently in the desert, faintly glowing with an eerie light. The aliens moved with precision, setting up equipment and fortifying their position. But despite all their advancements, the cowboys noticed one glaring weakness: the aliens weren't accustomed to the terrain. Struggling with the desert's extreme heat, dust, and shifting sands, their equipment malfunctioned. The cowboys exchanged knowing glances. They had lived in this harsh environment their whole lives. They knew how to use it to their advantage. Returning to camp, they felt more confident than ever. The aliens might have superior technology, but they lacked what the cowboys had in abundance: grit. The next morning, the cowboys launched their plan of attack. They weren't about to engage the aliens head-on; that would be suicide. Instead, they used guerrilla tactics, striking quickly and disappearing into the landscape before the aliens could react. They would use the desert itself as their weapon, keeping the invaders off balance. The first attack came at dawn. A small group of cowboys, led by a sharpshooter, ambushed an alien patrol that had wandered too far from the main camp. The aliens, unaccustomed to an enemy that could blend into the environment so effectively, were caught completely off guard. The cowboys moved fast, dismantling the aliens' equipment and taking whatever they could use. They didn't fully understand the technology, but they didn't need to. All they had to do was disrupt the aliens' operations, and that was something they excelled at. Word of the attack spread quickly among the alien ranks. The commander was livid. These humans were supposed to be primitive, incapable of standing against their superior technology. Yet here they were, dismantling his patrols with little more than outdated weapons and sheer determination. He ordered tighter security, more patrols, and the deployment of more advanced technology to counter the human threat. But the cowboys always seemed one step ahead. For days, they waged their war of attrition. They hit supply lines, ambushed small groups of aliens, and set traps throughout the desert. Despite their technological superiority, the aliens were unprepared for this type of warfare. They couldn't track the cowboys in the vast, unforgiving desert, and their advanced weapons, designed for large-scale battles, were ineffective against such nimble, unpredictable opponents. The cowboys, on the other hand, thrived. They knew the land, how to fight, and most importantly, how to adapt. Soon, they discovered a major flaw in the aliens' technology: it was too reliant on a central system. If they could disrupt the command center, they could throw the entire alien force into chaos. With this new knowledge, they set their sights on the aliens' main ship, where the commander and his elite soldiers were stationed. The plan was risky, but the cowboys had nothing to lose. Splitting into two groups, one would create a distraction while the other infiltrated the camp and planted explosives on key systems. The night before the assault, the cowboys gathered around a fire, their faces lit by the flickering flames. There was no fear, only determination. They knew the odds were against them, but they had faced worse odds before. This was their land, and they would defend it with everything they had. As dawn broke, the cowboys made their move. The distraction team launched a series of hit-and-run attacks that lured the aliens away from the main camp. Still underestimating the humans, the aliens took the bait, sending a large force to deal with what they thought was the primary threat. Meanwhile, the infiltration team, led by a young sharpshooter, slipped into the alien camp under the cover of darkness. Moving silently, they planted explosives on key systems and set timers. Just as the aliens realized they'd been tricked, the first explosion rocked the camp. Chaos erupted. Systems failed, lights flickered, and alien soldiers scrambled to respond. The Cowboys didn't stick around to watch the aftermath. They had done their job. The explosions crippled the alien command center, throwing their entire operation into disarray. Communication systems were down, weapons malfunctioned, and what had once been an organized, formidable force was now in complete chaos. The alien commander, for the first time, felt genuine fear. He had underestimated these humans, these so-called primitive savages, and now his entire operation was unraveling. His soldiers, once confident in their technological superiority, were beginning to panic. The Cowboys had done the unthinkable. They had taken on an advanced alien force and won, not with superior firepower or technology, but with strategy, determination, and an unbreakable will to survive. The aliens retreated, their pride shattered, leaving the Cowboys standing victorious in the desert they called home. The alien commander's frustration boiled over. His once coordinated forces were now fragmented, morale was at an all-time low, and the human resistance wasn't just holding out, they were winning. What enraged him most was that these humans were achieving victory with outdated, primitive technology. Every attempt to outmaneuver them had failed, every new strategy crushed by their unpredictability. The desert had become a battlefield where his forces, despite their technological advances, struggled to maintain even a foothold. But the commander wasn't ready to concede defeat, not yet. The aliens regrouped, determined to crush the humans by sheer brute force if necessary. Reinforcements arrived, more advanced units, heavily armed and equipped with technology specifically designed to counter human tactics. Drones capable of detecting heat signatures and enhanced sensory equipment were deployed, giving the aliens what they believed was an unbeatable advantage. They would locate the humans, root them out, and destroy them. Meanwhile, the Cowboys grew even more resolute. Each successful skirmish fueled their resolve. They had not only learned to survive but to thrive in the chaos of battle. The desert, with its harsh conditions, became a weapon that dulled the effectiveness of the aliens' technology. The heat, the dust, the vast, open landscape, what the aliens viewed as obstacles, the Cowboys saw as opportunities. With the aliens regrouping for a final push, the Cowboys knew it was time to make their move. As the alien commander prepared to execute his plan, the Cowboys were already 2 steps ahead. They had learned from every encounter, gaining a deep understanding of how the aliens operated. Their edge wasn't just their knowledge of the terrain, it was their ability to improvise in ways the aliens, with their rigid tactics, simply couldn't match. When the aliens advanced with their new equipment, confident that the humans wouldn't be able to evade them, the Cowboys once again employed new tactics. Rather than engaging directly, they used decoys, setting up false camps and leading the alien drones in circles. They manipulated the landscape, causing the alien machines to malfunction in the shifting sands and extreme heat. The Cowboys moved swiftly and silently, striking from unexpected angles and vanishing before the aliens could retaliate. The Cowboys' intimate knowledge of the desert was proving more powerful than any alien technology. They had figured out how to disable the aliens' equipment, using nothing but simple tools and ingenuity. Exploiting every weakness, they chipped away at the alien forces, bit by bit. And with each victory, the alien commander's confidence eroded further. The aliens, once so assured of their superiority, began to doubt. Their technology, always their greatest asset, was now failing them. They had never encountered an enemy like this before, one that refused to fight by the rules, one that couldn't be crushed by sheer firepower and overwhelming force. Worst of all, the humans seemed to grow stronger with each passing day, their tactics more refined, their strikes more devastating. The commander knew he had to act fast. The longer this dragged on, the more his forces would crumble. He ordered a full-scale assault, sending everything he had left into the desert to flush out the humans once and for all. It was a desperate move, but he saw no other choice. The aliens advanced in overwhelming numbers, their weapons primed to annihilate anything in their path. But the Cowboys had anticipated this. They knew the commander would make one last desperate push, and they were ready. The final battle would not be fought on the aliens' terms, it would be fought on theirs. The Cowboys had set their traps long before the aliens arrived. Explosives, hidden beneath the sand, were the first line of defense. When the alien tanks rolled over the seemingly empty desert, the ground erupted in explosions, throwing the once formidable machines into disarray. Soldiers on horseback darted in and out of the chaos, their rifles aimed with deadly precision, picking off alien soldiers one by one. The drones, which the aliens believed would give them a decisive advantage, were rendered useless. The Cowboys had devised ways to confuse their sensors, using the desert heat and strategically placed fires to create false readings. The drones circled aimlessly, unable to lock onto any targets while the Cowboys moved undetected. As the battle raged, the alien forces found themselves overwhelmed. They had the numbers, they had the technology, but they lacked the one thing the Cowboys had in spades: adaptability. Every tactic the aliens tried was countered, every move anticipated. It was as if the Cowboys could see the battle unfolding before it even began. The alien commander watched in horror as his forces fell apart. His once invincible army was being dismantled by a handful of humans, fighting not with advanced technology, but with determination, creativity, and an intimate understanding of their environment. He had underestimated them from the start, and now it was too late to rectify that mistake. In the chaos, the Cowboys pressed their advantage. They struck with precision, exploiting every weakness until the alien forces were nearly decimated. The few aliens who survived retreated, their once mighty fleet reduced to wreckage scattered across the desert. For the first time in his life, the alien commander tasted defeat. He had never encountered a species like this before, one that refused to submit, that fought with such relentless spirit. He had come to Earth expecting an easy victory, only to leave with nothing but the bitter taste of failure. The Cowboys stood victorious, their land and way of life preserved. They had not only defended their home but proven something much larger. The aliens had called them primitive savages, but in the end it was humanity's raw, untamed spirit that had triumphed over the most advanced technology. The aliens regrouped, their forces significantly reduced. The remaining soldiers were rattled, their confidence shattered by the relentless attacks of the Cowboys. The alien commander, still clinging to his belief in technological superiority, decided to make one final attempt to regain control. He ordered the deployment of their most advanced armor and weaponry devices capable of obliterating entire human cities. If brute force was the only way to crush the humans, so be it. This was no longer about strategy or conquest, it was about erasing resistance once and for all. But the Cowboys had anticipated this escalation. They knew their enemy was running out of options. The harder the aliens tried to impose technological solutions, the more they ignored the fundamental flaw in their approach. The desert wasn't a problem to be solved with machines, it was a force to be respected, one that would always favor those who understood it best. The Cowboys weren't just fighting to win, they were fighting to protect their home, and that gave them an edge the aliens could never comprehend. The first sign of the aliens' final assault came with a low hum in the air, as their ships deployed massive floating drones, each equipped with enough firepower to level everything in their path. But the Cowboys didn't panic. Instead, they dispersed across the desert, blending into the environment that had become their strongest ally. They had prepared for this moment, laying out carefully thought-out plans to counter the aliens' every move. The Cowboys knew they couldn't face these drones head-on. Their strength lay in their ability to disrupt and confuse the enemy. The aliens, intent on overwhelming the humans with sheer firepower, unleashed the drones, confident that no human force could withstand such an onslaught. But as the drones began firing, they found themselves hitting nothing but empty space. The Cowboys had once again turned the landscape into their greatest weapon, using the uneven terrain, deep canyons, and shifting sands to mask their movements and evade detection. The aliens' superior firepower was useless if they couldn't find their targets. While the drones wasted their energy on decoys and shadows, the Cowboys moved swiftly to disable them. Using ropes and explosives, they brought down one drone after another with precision, leaving the alien commander seething in frustration. His plan, once again, was falling apart in the face of human ingenuity. Despite the devastation the aliens were capable of unleashing, their inability to adapt to the Cowboys' tactics became increasingly clear. The Cowboys had learned to think several steps ahead, predicting the aliens' every move. They knew that technology could only take them so far. In the end, it was human creativity and flexibility that would win the day. The Cowboys used everything at their disposal, from the simplest tools to the most dangerous explosives, to dismantle the alien forces piece by piece. As the battle reached its climax, the alien commander realized something he hadn't understood from the beginning. The humans weren't just reacting, they were controlling the fight. Every time he thought he had them cornered, they slipped away, turning the tables in ways he hadn't anticipated. They weren't fighting with desperation, they were fighting with purpose, with a clear understanding of their enemy and an even clearer understanding of their own strengths. The final blow didn't come from a massive assault or a high-tech weapon, but from the relentless pressure the Cowboys had applied from the start. The aliens, despite all their advancements, had overlooked one simple truth: no matter how advanced their technology, it couldn't match the sheer will and determination of those defending their home. Through careful planning and execution, the Cowboys had forced the aliens into a position where they could no longer maintain control. In the end, the alien commander, watching his forces crumble and his weapons fail, had no choice but to order a retreat. The alien ships, once imposing and invincible, began to lift off from the wreckage-strewn battlefield. The Cowboys watched them go, their faces hardened but proud. They had won, not by matching the aliens' technology, but by outsmarting and outlasting them. For the first time in his career, the alien commander had been defeated by a species he had dismissed as insignificant. His arrogance, his unwavering belief in technological superiority, had blinded him to the true strength of the humans. As his ship rose into the sky, the commander cast one final look down at the desert below, where a handful of cowboys had brought his empire to its knees. The cowboys, battered and bruised, stood victorious. The desert fell silent once more, save for the distant rumble of the alien fleet retreating over the horizon. They had fought, not just with guns and explosives, but with their minds, their instincts, and their deep connection to the land they called home. The aliens had underestimated them at every turn, believing that technology could compensate for their lack of understanding. But in the end, it was the humans' understanding of their environment, their own resilience, that had made all the difference. Victory was theirs, not because they had the most advanced weapons, but because they had exploited their enemies' weaknesses. The Cowboys had proven that sometimes it's not the size of the army or the sophistication of the weapons that determines victory, it's the determination to stand firm, to outthink and outlast an opponent who doesn't truly grasp what they're up against. The battle was over, but the Cowboys knew that their fight wasn't just for today, it was for the future, for the right to control their own destiny, and to show the galaxy that humanity, no matter how underestimated, would always find a way to survive. The aliens had called them primitive savages, but in the end, it was the Cowboys who stood tall, having defended their world against overwhelming odds. As the dust settled and the last of the alien ships vanished beyond the horizon, the Cowboys gathered in the desert stillness, the adrenaline of battle still coursing through their veins. There was no celebration, only a quiet sense of accomplishment. They had faced an enemy far beyond their understanding, one armed with technology that could have easily wiped them out. And yet here they stood, the final defenders of a planet the aliens had deemed ripe for conquest. The alien commander, now aboard his retreating ship, stared out at the planet he had failed to conquer. His defeat weighed heavily on him. He had arrived expecting to crush a primitive species and add another victory to his empire's record. Instead, he had been outwitted by humans who fought not with superior firepower, but with an indomitable spirit. As he replayed the battle in his mind, he realized it wasn't just the humans' tactics that had defeated him, it was something deeper, something he hadn't accounted for: the sheer will to survive, to protect what was theirs. The humans possessed an understanding of their environment that he and his forces had completely overlooked. They had lived in this unforgiving land for generations, shaped by it, molded by its challenges. The desert, which the aliens had viewed as just another obstacle to overcome, was a part of the Cowboys' very being. It wasn't just the landscape they had used to their advantage, it was the knowledge, the instincts honed over a lifetime of surviving in harsh conditions. The aliens had brought machines and weapons, but the humans had brought something far more dangerous: experience. Back on Earth, the Cowboys didn't need grand speeches to acknowledge what they had accomplished. They all understood, in their quiet way, that this victory was not just about defeating an invading force, it was a statement of who they were, of what humanity was capable of when pushed to the brink. The aliens had underestimated them from the start, and in doing so, had sealed their own fate. This victory wasn't just about outsmarting the aliens in battle, it was proof that no matter how advanced a foe may be, there are qualities that cannot be measured in technological terms. The aliens had their ships, their weapons, their armor, but the Cowboys had something far more valuable: heart. They fought, not because they were ordered to or because they had grand ambitions for conquest, they fought because it was their home, and that made all the difference. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the desert, the Cowboys began to break camp. There was no need for a lengthy discussion about what came next. They would return to their ranches, their homes, their lives. The battle was over, and life would go on. But things wouldn't be quite the same. The aliens had shown them a glimpse of what lay beyond the stars, of the dangers that could come from far away. The Cowboys had faced that threat head-on and emerged victorious. They knew it might not be the last time. And yet, there was no fear in their hearts. If anything, they felt stronger than ever. They had taken on an enemy that saw them as insignificant and weak, and they had proven that strength wasn't about the size of your weapons or the sophistication of your technology. It was about resolve, about standing your ground when it mattered most. The Cowboys had always known this truth, but now the galaxy knew it too. For the alien commander, retreat was a bitter pill to swallow. His empire would not look kindly upon his failure. He had underestimated the humans, allowed his arrogance to cloud his judgment. He had expected an easy victory, but what he encountered was a species that refused to be cowed, that fought with a fierceness and ingenuity he had never seen before. He had learned a harsh lesson: never underestimate your opponent, especially when that opponent is fighting for their home. As the alien ship left Earth's orbit, the commander made a silent vow. He would not forget what had happened here. These humans were far more dangerous than anyone had given them credit for. It would be a grave mistake to underestimate them again. He had come expecting to crush a primitive species, but what he found was a force to be reckoned with. While he had been defeated, he knew this was only the beginning. For the Cowboys, this battle had been just another day in their lives. They had faced impossible odds, just as they always had, and emerged victorious. But this victory felt different. It wasn't just about defending their land, it was about defending their place in the universe. The aliens had come to take what wasn't theirs, and the Cowboys had shown them that humanity wasn't about to back down to anyone, no matter how advanced their technology might be. As they rode off into the night, the Cowboys left behind the wreckage of alien machines a silent testament to what had transpired. The desert had claimed the invaders, just as it had claimed countless others who underestimated its power. The Cowboys understood that they were now part of something much bigger, part of a story that would be told far beyond the stars. And so, the Cowboys returned to their lives, knowing they had accomplished something extraordinary. They had stood against an overwhelming force, armed not with the most advanced technology, but with the determination and ingenuity to fight for what was theirs. The aliens had called them primitive savages, but in the end it was those very qualities that led them to victory. The Cowboys had proven that, sometimes, the most advanced technology in the universe is no match for the indomitable human spirit.